Jon Jones is not the GOAT. So UFC 2024 seems to be the year of Justin Gaethje's death sentence, Belal Muhammad actually becoming a world champion, and Dana White not shutting the up about Jon Jones being the greatest of all time.
Did I mention to you guys that Jon Jones is the greatest of all time?
Jon Jones, 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 Jon Jones.
Oh my God, bro, is dick riding all you do?
No, I'm saying
you literally got that dick in your mouth right now. I see it.
Like, mate, we get it. Shut up.
Stop riding. When you say stop riding, are you talking about Jon Jones?
Now, here's the thing. If any Jones fans just want to call me a hater, fair enough. I'm not exactly the biggest Jones fan out there. I mean, personally, I'm not really a fan of anyone that you find crying and bashing their head on a cop car after picking up a domestic arrest charge. But that's just me. For any Jones fans defending him, maybe that's where we differ, you know what I mean? But it doesn't even matter to explain yourself being a hater or not, because for whatever reason you give for why Jones isn't the GOAT, these fans are just going to comment, Jones is still the GOAT though, and never elaborate on it, because they've only seen his career through YouTube video essay documentaries or TikToks. So I'm not here to be biased or cope and make up nonsense reasons for why Jones isn't the GOAT. And if you have Jones as your GOAT, that's fine, that's your prerogative. But for some reason, MMA seems to be the only sport I can think of where its biggest organization is just forcing who the GOAT is down our throats against our wills. No Diddy, no Jones. I mean, GOAT conversations are usually just fun debates for fans, or I guess toxic argument between retarded fanboys. You have Messi and Ronaldo, LeBron and Jordan, Drake and Josh, the list goes on. GOAT conversations are for fans to have and not big organizations and Dana White to dictate for us. It shouldn't matter who you have as the GOAT. That's your GOAT. You can think Belal Muhammad is the GOAT for all you want. Yeah, I mean, you'll look retarded, but it's your opinion that we're all entitled to, much like the rest of us. But Dana White would want to have you believe that if you don't believe Jon Jones is the GOAT, then you are in fact an idiot and shouldn't even be talking about the sport. What the fuck? What is... One second, I don't know what the fuck that was. Why are you breaking...
You cannot deny that while Jon Jones is active, he is the greatest fighter in the world. These are all facts. I mean, I even laid them out in a commercial for all the stupid people that can't wrap their head around it.
And if you don't know the commercial that Dana White's referring to here, this sounds like I'm joking. I'm being dead serious. On Dana White's Contender Series, Season 8, Week 4, which you can find on Fight Pass. You can find this for yourself on Fight Pass if you have it. You even had Jon Jones tweeting about a surprise coming up on the broadcast, which you'd think was a fight announcement, but oh no. Halfway during the show, they ran a promo to promote Jon Jones as the GOAT. That was it. That's how far Dana White's willing to go to try and brainwash us all, and it's not gonna work. Unless you already have Jon Jones as the GOAT, then I guess this doesn't really matter to you. In this promo, it would show all of Jones's stats and accolades, which Dana White seems to think we don't already know about.
There's a lot of stats about him, who he's beaten. I don't know.
Did you guys read them?
There's a lot of stuff.
Did you guys read the stats?
Like, we know the stats already. You're just missing one very key stat in all of this. The one where it should say, I don't know, 4 failed drug tests, undefeated, 15 championship wins, most in UFC history, and 4 failed drug tests. Also, what the fuck do you mean undefeated? He has a loss on his record. You're just straight up lying at this point. It's essentially false advertisement to promote him as the GOAT. It's just one simple Google search away from disproving. And if the Jon Jones fans want to say that his loss shouldn't count as a loss because he was throwing illegal strikes, I could actually understand their point, since realistically, he was beating Matt Hamill's ass the entire time. However, the issue is, these same fans will then go on about the Reyes fight and say Jones won because who got their hand raised? Which side are you on? Do you want to be on the official result side, or who really won the fight? Because Dominic Reyes did in fact beat his ass for 3 rounds straight. But with this promo, this now brings me on to my very first key point for why Jonathan Dwight Jones is not the GOAT. PEDs. And in case anyone doesn't understand what that means, performance-enhancing drugs. I swear MMA is the only sport where you can just fail drug test after drug test and just not have it impact your legacy at all. As long as you just don't lose, or in fact, as long as you don't lose, people will start defending it.
Do you have to question everything he's ever accomplished now? Because this is back-to-back.
It's crazy. But the thing that's sad is when you start saying, should we question everything Jon's ever done? He's the best to ever do it. He didn't need those drugs.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I'm sorry, did I just hear the president of the UFC say that a guy that tested positive for PEDs didn't actually need them? Like, how do you even come to that conclusion? They're called performance-enhancing drugs for a reason. You bald c***.
But then why, Dana?
I don't know. Only he can answer that question.
I mean, I got a reason why. This might be crazy. I don't know. He might have done it to perhaps, I don't know, maybe cheat. Jones tested positive at UFC 200, where he ruined the event and made us have to sit through Miesha Tate versus Amanda Nunes as the main event, where Dana White himself, with his bald, shiny head, had to break the news to Daniel Cormier that Jones in fact tested positive. And then Jon Jones tests positive again after actually rematching Daniel Cormier at UFC 214, which is really weird because he was awfully specific about not being on steroids.
You know, I beat him fair and square the first time and off of steroids, and I beat him the second time off of steroids.
I mean, call me crazy. I think it's a bit weird being that awfully specific that you're not on steroids. And of course, Jones would test positive in his following fight against Gustafsson in the rematch at UFC 232 for the infamous picogram, where they'd have to move an entire event to another state just to have it sanctioned, and Jon Jones get his very own personal PR team of Dana White and Jeff Nowitzki to cope and defend his innocence for failing his 4th drug test. Like, is it really that crazy to be against someone being the GOAT of a sport that's tested positive for PEDs at least 3 times? It's like, if that doesn't take you out the running, I don't know what will. And that's just something I hate about the UFC, or I should say Dana White, just going out of his way to artificially make Jon Jones the GOAT of the sport. It's just embarrassing to see the UFC just openly promote one of the biggest cheats in the sport as the GOAT. It's one thing for a fan to think Jon Jones is the GOAT because they can think everyone else is on steroids, so it makes it fair for them. However, the sport is, you know, supposed to be against cheating. Like, it's meant to be a bad thing. I'm pretty sure they put it in contracts for them to not do it. Even in that GOAT promo they made for Jones, they're using highlights from a fight that he tested positive in and was turned to a no contest. Do you have no shame? But hey, as long as you just keep winning, even by robbing people of decisions, it doesn't matter how many drug tests you fail, you're still able to become the undeniable GOAT of the sport.
Gustafsson did say yesterday, Jones is a cheater, and whatever he's saying to explain this latest issue is quote, nonsense. What do you make of those comments?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Gustafsson, I feel the same way.
Oh, you'd feel the same way? Is that because maybe he's cheated, you mean? Dana White would do and say anything to defend Jon Jones of his failed drug test, but get on video and call out Jake Paul for the same thing.
Jake, you never responded to the challenge. I believe that you're a cheater, and I believe that you use steroids.
But to be fair to Jones, you could also say some of his opponents were also on it. He was fighting pre-USADA. The likes of Chael Sonnen, Vitor Belfort were also on it. However, those are the same guys that deflated like balloons when USADA came in, while Jon Jones was still testing positive post-USADA. But yeah, Jon Jones fans just don't care that he's tested positive at all, let alone multiple times. Which I could understand considering they also think everybody in the UFC also cheats. So it only makes it fair and reasonable for Jon Jones to cheat. And then their only insight for that is the fact that Nick and Nate Diaz once said everyone's on steroids.
All you motherfuckers are on steroids.
As if Nick and Nate Diaz are the greatest minds to ever be in the sport. Or you'll just have some smart-ass dickhead be like,
I was in a gym once and believe me, everyone's on it. If you don't think so, then you're just fucking naive.
It's always the guy breaking the news that everyone's on it. But they were never on it, just everyone else is.
I'm the only person in this sport, for the most part, that ain't on steroids.
Now, don't get me wrong. I understand there are fighters that have the money and resources to get past drug tests, and I have my suspicions myself. I mean, Adesanya randomly grew a breast in his 30s. But to say that every single fighter, even on the amateur scene, are also on PEDs, when some of these guys are basically homeless, seems pretty asinine. You're telling me the same guys that are fighting to pay off their car insurance are the same guys getting PEDs and the right people to get past drug tests? Even when Jones fans make the case for why he's the GOAT and then defend the criticism against it, they will never bring up the criticism of him being a PED cheat And I think I actually just found a video recently while doing research for this. Let me find it, hang on. So yeah, shout out to this dude that made a YouTube short called Jon Jones is the GOAT and it isn't close. Oh boy.
I need y'all to understand, we will never in our fucking lifetimes see another fighter like Jon Jones.
To be fair, he is right. It is hard to top 4 failed drug tests. That is crazy stuff to, you know, crazy, big boost to Phil there. Fingers crossed we see it again.
Ever. This man is the fucking GOAT and it shouldn't be a discussion. I'm tired of it being a discussion.
I'm tired of it too, bro. I'm a bit like, look, we can agree on that.
Look, I completely understand if you don't like Jon Jones outside of the cage, but the excuses that you people make to discredit this man.
Okay,
it's
so
insane.
he's going to explain the excuses that people make to discredit him. I wonder what he has to say about the PEDs.
He's still nowhere near where GSP was. Heavyweight's the worst division. God isn't as good as Michael Bisping was. GSP got stretched by Matt fucking Sarah. Jon has been in the UFC for 15 years. He has beaten 7 Hall of Famers and finished 5 of them. He still hasn't walked out of that cage with a real loss yet. And he was barely training for half of his fights. I need y'all to understand, we will never in our...
Where the fuck were the PEDs? Well, I guess he just didn't want to mention the PEDs, much like Dana White and all the other Jon Jones defenders. Maybe because you can't really defend it and it's pretty bad. And it's just an interesting trend I'm seeing with Jon Jones fans here. Like, you'll have these Jones defenders say how Jones haters only bring up what he's done outside of the cage to discredit him. And the reason for that is the fact that you have Jones defenders unironically try to say he's not really a cheat and that he would never intentionally take any PEDs. When, as we know, he's done much worse things for much less. He's confirmed himself he's hidden under the cage from a drug tester, driven drunk multiple times, smashed his car, hit and run a pregnant woman to run from the scene, to come back to pick up his drugs to then run from the scene again. He had the domestic arrest charge, but intentionally taking PEDs is where he draws a line. It's just not in his character. He tweets Bible verses once a month. Meanwhile, you got the likes of GSP that fought to have more drug testing in the sport, and I guess he never hit a woman either. Maybe this explains why Dana White hates GSP so much. Like, Dana White even always says how Usman's the welterweight GOAT over GSP.
You might not like Kamaru. You might not like whatever it is you don't like about him, but you cannot fucking deny that he's the greatest welterweight of all time.
Can't deny it. Can't deny it. You can't deny it. You can't deny it. You can't fucking deny it.
And you're telling me we should be listening to Dr. Eggman over here on who's the GOAT of the sport. There's also the fact that Jon Jones is just generally a dirty fighter.
He's the dirtiest fighter ever. He's the dirtiest fighter ever. And the guy's so smart. He does the most dirtiest things, like doing anything good on him. And he's going to put his fingers in you. He's going to poke you in the eye.
I poked his opponents for years, openly admitted to all of it.
So Daniel Cormier is saying before the fight that I'll end up poking him in the eyes at some point. And the reason why he says that is because I do poke people in the eyes. And it's very illegal, but I do it.
Jones put his finger in his eye. Dirtiest fighter in MMA.
And then you have the advantages. Like the time that Jon Jones said he wouldn't want to fight DC at heavyweight because he'd have a size advantage over him. And he wouldn't want to fight who's considered one of the best heavyweights of all time because it's unfair to him. But now that Stipe's 42, coming off a brutal KO loss from 3 years ago, now he's all for it.
I'm a realist, you know. Daniel Cormier is a special athlete. And everyone can be beat. And I think my greatest chance of losing would be to a guy like Daniel Cormier, with giving him a power and strength advantage over me. It just doesn't make sense. And to give him a size advantage, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm sure my fans don't like to hear me talk like that, but that's just me being a realist.
Are you ruling out heavyweight, period?
Oh, no, not against, I mean, a lot of people consider him the greatest ever. So to fight the greatest, I'll fight heavyweights, just not someone as smart as DC at heavyweight.
Also, how the fuck can someone have a size advantage over you when you're 8 years younger, 5 inches taller, and have a 12-inch reach advantage? But hey, it's not like Jon Jones hasn't had all the advantages in nearly every single UFC fight he's had. Like in his debut where he had the age, height, and reach advantage. 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 Oh, he actually fought someone taller than him in this one, but He has the reach advantage, the age, height, and reach advantage, the age, height, and reach advantage, the age and reach advantage, the Anthony Smith advantage, the age, height, and reach advantage, the robbery advantage, and the fighting the guy's own size disadvantage. And at this point, he was actually fighting people around his actual size, though still had an 8-inch reach advantage on them, and was where he looked the most underwhelming in his entire career, and also conveniently wasn't testing positive for PEDs at the time. Kind of weird that he looked much worse when he wasn't testing positive. Going the distance with Anthony Smith, who is Anthony Smith. I mean, statistically speaking, he's been finished 15 times, but the GOAT of the sport can't finish him with 5 rounds while throwing illegal knees to the head. Then had a close decision with Thiago Santos, who tore his ACL, MCL, and CPL and meniscus in his left knee. I don't even know what half of those are. And Thiago Santos managed to go 4 rounds with his knee being built like mashed potato and had a split decision. And of course, following that, you had the infamous Dominic Reyes beating Jones's ass for 3 rounds and getting robbed. In other words, once he stopped actually testing positive and was fighting people his own size, he wasn't looking as good. To be fair to Jones, I understand he doesn't actually get to pick the age, size, and reach of his opponents as a champion until it comes to Tom Aspinall anyway, and he ducks him. And I almost forgot to mention this, however, I know there'll just be some Jon Jones glazer in the comments saying something like,
well, actually, Jon Jones was the youngest UFC champion in UFC history, actually.
And, well, that is true. However, Jose Aldo won the WEC belt when he was 23 years, 2 months, 1 week, and 2 days old, when Jon Jones won the UFC belt when he was 23 and 8 months old. And again, I just know there'll be a Jon Jones glazer saying something like, well,
actually, nobody even knows what the WEC is and only bums fight for that belt.
Which the UFC had already bought out the WEC when Jose Aldo won the belt and just had to wait for it to be merged into the UFC, which is why when Aldo made his UFC debut, was already the champion defending the UFC belt. And I'm not trying to say that Jon Jones isn't the youngest champion in UFC history, because he factually is for the UFC. However, if we're being realistic, Aldo kind of is and gets no credit for it, and it's one of the biggest selling points for why Jones is considered the GOAT. But I just find it insane that his entire UFC career, he was at an age disadvantage to 2 opponents, a height disadvantage to 1 opponent, and a reach advantage to no one, which makes sense. It's pretty hard to beat those long, dangly 84.5-inch reach arms. I mean, Jones was really out here with a 12.5-inch reach advantage, still having to eye poke his opponents while testing positive for PEDs. It's almost as if he was fighting middleweight-sized men his entire career, and in some cases, actual middleweights coming off a loss at middleweight, like Chael Sonnen. But hey, he did run through Cyril Gane in a couple minutes, which was actually impressive, I will give him that. Although he did have to sit out and wait 3 years for Ngannou to leave before doing it. And since then, we've now just been in the Jones ducking and diving Tom Aspinall era, which I've done videos covering, which you can also check out. They're bangers for sure, you know, check them out. And I'm going to leave this video here. I will say Jon Jones obviously has done amazing things, has built an amazing record for himself, has achieved amazing things. However, he is a PED cheat, so what good is it really?